Hi guys. So I've had several students that have had trouble with the plant and animal cell, and I don't want you to feel bad at all. Please do not. If you've had trouble with this, finding the answers, doing some of the work, it takes a lot of practice. It's really tricky. Most of the answers you can find by going to either your original document on cells. I don't know if you remember the one that we did that looked like this. It's going to come up in a second where you had to write down the function. I also gave you a sheet that was like a plant and cell organelle help, where it would tell you the name of what each thing was and then gave you the answers to the chart. So that was a help. But if that's still really giving you trouble, then I highly recommend watching this video because I'm going to go through it together. So here's what I think you should get out, and I think you should stop the video until you have both of these things out. Okay. The first thing you should have out is this, the cell practice slides, okay? These were the questions for Thursday and Friday, okay, that you had to answer about the cell practice. And then you also want to have this animal versus plant cell practice sheet out because we're going to go through the answers, okay? So basically what I'm going to do, and hopefully you can watch this and then practice and turn it in on your own, and I'll still count it, okay? But it's kind of like a little, having me there as a little bit of extra help. So let's go through each part, okay? And I'm going to go kind of fast, so stop the video whenever you need to, okay? All right, number one, what kind of cell is this? So if we notice, this picture is a box, okay? Anytime you have a box or a square, that means it's a plant cell, okay? Plant cells are really rigid. If you think about plants, they're not dancing around, they're not moving a lot. And so because of that, they're pretty square and rigid. So anytime you see a box or a square, that's a plant cell. So I'm gonna go to my answer, I'm gonna type in plant cell. Okay, and that's already done for us. Let's do number two. It says hint starts with an O. So let's go to slide two. Two says, what are the little things inside the cell called? And actually, these little things are kind of like organs in our body. So if they're in our cells, they're even tinier. So we call them organelles. Kind of a cute little name. So I'm going to type that in. Type that in, and it's organelles. If you want to stop the video, stop it now, and you can do the same. Okay? All right, the next one. The next one is the yellow circle, okay, number three. The yellow circle, always we look for this central circle. Another picture that shows it pretty well is here. It kind of ends up looking like a melon with a pit or squiggly stuff in the middle, okay? But you basically look for the main circle, okay? Anytime you see the main circle in the cell, that's a big deal. That's called the nucleus, okay? The nucleus. So on my sheet, I'm going to write N for nucleus, okay? All right, next part. The next part is, what is this yellow organelle's job? Well, the job of the nucleus works a lot like our brain, okay? So our brain's job is to be in kind of control of our body, right? The nucleus is to be in control of the cell. So we call it the boss. It's kind of like the principal or the teacher, or the principal of the school or the teacher of the classroom, okay? So let's take a look at that. So let's go and let's put, the hint is it's the boss. Or you could say brain. Either one would work. Okay, next slide, number five. What are these organelles? And if you look at them, they're colored in this picture red, but they kind of look like beans with little squiggles in them, okay? Or I kind of look at them as like weird hot dog buns with squiggles in them, okay? These organelles are really, really important. They are called mitochondria. Mitochondria. So here's the answer, mitochondria, okay? All right, next one. Number six. What are the jobs of these of these organelles? And there's a hint, mighty. So these organelles are really, really important. Basically, what they do is they take the food that we eat and they break it down and give us energy. So usually there's more than one. Okay, so here's four different kinds here, but this is just basically things that create energy for the cell. So let's go back to the answers. Takes food and turns them into energy. Okay. All right, number seven. What is this large organelle called? Okay, I always think this kind of looks like a swimming pool. Man, I wish I could be in a swimming pool right now. But this large organelle is called a vacuole. A vacuole. And here's how you spell it. Vacuole. That's a weird spelling, okay? And then number eight. Number eight, the job of this organelle, it kind of does what it looks like. Think about it. If it kind of looks like a pool, what does a pool do? It holds water, right? Well, if this is a plant cell, think about how much water plant cells need, right? They need a ton. So right here, we have what's called a vacuole. Its job is to hold water for the cell. Okay, sometimes it holds waste and food, but mostly water. So that's what I'm going to type in. It stores water and nutrients for the cell. Okay. All right. Number 9. Number 9, what is this organelle called? So there's always something that kind of looks squiggly, kind of looks like sacs or membranes. That's always really close to the nucleus. Remember, the nucleus is this yellow thing. It's almost like it's hugging it. We call that the ER, okay? Kind of like the same name almost, or the abbreviation as when you go to the doctor if you're really, really, really hurt, right? The ER stands for endoplasmic reticulum. Crazy. You could just call it the ER. But always look for the nucleus. And then the thing that's kind of shoved up right next to it, usually there's dots on it, kind of interesting looking, right, is called the ER. So I'm going to type that in. Endoplasmic reticulum, or ER. Okay, and then number 10, the job of this organelle is to transport things throughout the cell. So basically, it's going to take things, and because it covers, see all these little channels that run through it? Things transport themselves throughout the cell. So it's kind of like the hallways of a school, or maybe like the blood vessels on a human. The ER, or endoplasmic reticulum, transports things. So that's what I'm going to write here. Transports. Okay. Okay. And that, whoops, sorry, that was number 10. So the job is to transport things. Okay, let's go on to 11. 11, what is the goo or gel called that holds all these organelles together? So basically, this empty space here that's kind of like the jello that holds everything together, and it's kind of basically like a goo, that's called cytoplasm. So I'm going to type that in there, cytoplasm. Okay. Let's go to number 12. What is the outside layer that protects the cell and helps keep its shape? So that would be this really green outside. And if you notice, it's really rigid and it looks kind of hard and thick. That is called the cell wall. Kind of tricky, but only the plant cell has this, okay? So this green structure around the cell protects it and helps give the cell its strong shape. That's called the cell wall, okay? So we're going to write that in. Cell, W for wall. Okay. All right. Next one is 13. What is the red-orange layer that lets things in and out? And actually, this exists in a plant and an animal cell, but this is kind of like the security guard of the cell. This is called the cell membrane. So the thing that lets things in and out, kind of like a security guard, is called the cell membrane. Okay, so I'm going to type that in. And the hint is cell and then membrane. Okay. Number 14, what is this organelle called? Well, see, it's another one. This blue one kind of looks like the ER again, doesn't it? Isn't that the ER right here? This blue structure here is usually towards the outside. So it looks like the ER, but it's never really by the nucleus. So this would be another one, okay? It has a really funky name. It's called the Golgi bodies. So we're going to type that in. So Golgi bodies. Okay, and basically the Golgi bodies kind of is in the right position because it's kind of close to the edge of the cell, right? The Golgi bodies basically gets things ready and packaged to leave the cell. So something's going to ship out of the cell and go somewhere else, it gets it ready. So it's kind of like the final packing or shipping room in a factory. It gets stuff ready to leave the cell. Okay, so I'm going to write down gets things ready to leave the cell. Okay. All right, next one, number 15. What is the job of this organelle? And we just did that. Whoops. So number 15. Oops. Oh, I guess I did that. Sorry. Its job is to leave the cell. Yeah, or to get ready to leave the cell. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's go to 16. What did I just do wrong? Oh, sorry. 16 is what is the name of this structure? Okay, this is another thing that only exists in plant cells, okay? Only in plant cells. So anytime you see a bean and it's got like these, almost looks like stacks of like pancakes, or in some other pictures, it kind of looks like stacks of membrane sacks, just these little sacks that are stacked on kind of like silver dollar pancakes. That is called the chloroplast. So I'm going to write that in. Chloroplast, and it's spelled like chloroplast. Okay. And basically, the job, number 17, of this organelle is to take energy from the sun and take water and nutrients and turn it into food. This is why the plant cell only has it. Because if you think about it, plants don't shove stuff into their face and eat it, right? Like we do. They have to make their own food to survive. So this chloroplast helps them do that. So let's go back. And it says takes energy from the blank, and that word would be the sun. Okay, that's why a lot of times plants are green, because there's this little thing inside of it called chlorophyll that turns the plant green. Okay, that's why a lot of times plants are green, because they're getting their energy from the sun and using that green chemical. Okay, next one, number 18. We're getting there, guys. How do you know this is an animal cell? Okay, so we spent a lot of time talking about how this is a square, right? It's a plant cell. But anytime you see something that's not a square, that's kind of circular, is an animal cell. This is the kind of cells that we have. And if you think about it, animals have to move, right? So it makes sense that they're kind of squishy, right? And circular. So this is an animal cell because it is circular. So that's what I'm going to write. I'm going to say animal cell because circle shaped. Okay? Oops, spelled that wrong. Okay, next one, number 19. So number 19 says, what is the part of this cell? So I don't know if you remember, but when we talked about the animal cell, we looked at how there's this outer layer called the cell wall, and then an inner layer called the cell membrane. Okay, the cell membrane is the part that both cells have. Okay, so when we look at this pink layer on the outside of this cell, that's called the cell membrane. So again, cell membrane, number 19. Okay, number 20, what is the job of this organelle? Like I said before, the job of this organelle is to let things in and out, just like a security guard. Okay, so the clue is I, so to let things in. Okay, number 21. And now we're kind of going fast because a lot of these are repeated. 21, what is this organelle called? Okay, if you look at it, it's kind of a different view, but it's really close. This is the nucleus, right? Really close to the nucleus, okay? And it's got those funky dots on it. If you remember, the one that kind of hugs the nucleus is called the ER, or the endoplasmic reticulum. So that's what I'm going to put in there, ER, okay? And then the next question, its job of the ER, remember, it extends and kind of goes throughout a lot of parts of the cell. So it makes sense that its job is to transport or move things throughout the cell. So the answer is it transports things, things around the cell. Okay? All right, one thing we haven't learned yet, number 23, is that these dots have a name. These funky dots everywhere, and if you notice, they're on the ER, but they're also like floating freely in the cytoplasm, which is the goo, right? Those are called ribosomes. A lot of people say, oh, ribosomes, but they're not. They're called ribosomes. So I'm going to write that in for number 23. Ribosomes. They're kind of spelled like rib, okay, which is why I gave you the clue. It kind of sounds like you'd have it with barbecue sauce. Okay. And basically, like I said, the 24, these dots are found either on the ER, okay, and because the dots are on this part of the ER that's that has dots on it, we call rough ER, like a bumpy road. The part of the ER that doesn't have dots on it is called smooth ER. And then ribosomes also float around in the cytoplasm. So let's write that down. It says ribosomes are found on the ER or floating freely in the cytoplasm. Okay, I only have a couple more left, guys. Here we go. Number 25, what's the job of this organelle? Well, if you look, it's in the middle, right? It's a circle and it's pretty predominant, pretty big. So that's the nucleus, okay? And the job, if you remember, it's kind of like in charge. It's the brain, right, of the cell. It controls all the cell's activity. So we say it's the boss, okay? So for that one, you could put the boss or the brain of the cell, okay? All right, now we're getting to number 26. We've seen this before. This is the bean one, the kind of one that I think it looks like a bean. It has squiggles in it, right? And it starts with an M. So we call that, and it's mighty because it gives us energy, takes the food we eat and turns it into energy. It's called the mitochondria, okay? All right, number 27. This one right here kind of looks a little bit like the ER, but in this one, it's kind of bad because it looks like it's close to the nucleus, but it's a little further out, right? And notice none of it have dots on it. So those are called the Golgi bodies, okay? So G for Golgi, okay? right? Now we're going to get to the picture of the plant and the animal cell, number 28. So what we've basically learned is that there's two parts that the plant cell has that the animal doesn't. And that's mostly because they can't eat their own food and they can't really move. So a plant cell has these chloroplasts, these things that look like flat stacks or like coins kind of stacked on lines, stacked on each other, right? That's the chloroplast. And that helps take the sun's energy and make food. But then there's also this green barrier around the plant cell. And if you notice, this does not exist anywhere in here. This outer layer does not exist anywhere in the animal cell. So the answer to that is chloroplast. Okay, that's the thing that kind of looks like it has stacks on it, right? And then cell wall. Okay, those are two things the plant cell has that the animal does not. Okay, and then very last question. Here we go. 29. Oops. 29. What organelle does a plant cell have that is much larger than an animal cell? Okay. And actually, animal cells do have these, but they're really big and prominent. And if you look here, I see like what looks like a giant pool in a plant cell, but I do not see it in the animal. That's called the vacuole. So that is your very last answer, vacuole. Okay. And then if you wanted to respond to number 30, you can. But hopefully, this gave you a little bit more review. Miss you guys. See you later. Bye.